The left now, their response to affirmative, this is a layup. Sure, you shouldn't be able to discriminate against Asians. We used to bitch about people throwing Asians right in New York on the third rail, and we said stop Asian hate. Now they're no longer a useful tool. Affirmative action. What do you got, Gerald?
So the Supreme Court did rule on the affirmative action case. We've covered this before, how they would actually weight it against Asian people. You want to stop Asian hate, start at Harvard, because Asians would not be able to get in because they had affirmative action to get more diversity, they would say. And so the Supreme Court has ruled on that and a North Carolina case as well, saying that it violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment.
Before we move on,
obvious before the Supreme Court said it.
Before we move on, there is a black lady on CNN, which of course is I don't see race, talking about affirmative action. Let's see what they have to say.
Right here today, I'm still scratching my head, as many admissions officers will be, so I can take into consideration race as part of the student's experience. But their actual racial group or category cannot be contemplated or taken into account. You're going to have a situation that has often been part of the admissions process. Two quote-unquote equal students, perhaps in academic scoring, SATs or ACTs, perhaps geographically, perhaps even in the instruments that they play so well for the symphony. And what will be the deciding factors? The court here today says it cannot be race, but the other factors could very well remain. I'm also curious to hear from Secretary Lloyd Austin.
Well, hold on a second. What she just said is, scores, academic performance, extracurricular activities. It won't include race, but everything else that I just named, which is entirely reasonable, may be a part of the admissions process.
Yes. Two equal candidates. She literally just advocated for racism. She said two equal candidates, everything else being equally. What is it going to come down to? Well, I know it's not going to be race, which it should. If it's a black student, they should get in over an Asian.
But that's not the issue, too. That's not the lawsuit. The lawsuit is, I know, but the lawsuit and a lot of the arguments are that Asians have to actually achieve higher academic scores.
Way higher.
That's the problem. It's not everything being equal. It's even if one outperforms on the metrics that actually matter, race can supersede that. That's what they're not telling you on CNN. I don't know if it's because she's an idiot or she's lying. It could be a little of column A, a little of column B.
They don't use race, though. A lot of times they'll use lived experience. So there's all these euphemisms. And so your lived experience may be one in which you didn't get the kinds of opportunities, blah, 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 or and that has to be taken into account.
Why?
So
Why?
Because that's the liberal talking point.
I understand.
Lower the bar.
Guys, you're on the same team. The fight's out there, damn it.
You're right. I apologize, Greg.
Hootie, what were you about to say?
Yeah, we actually have some demographics on the chance of acceptability by race. So it breaks down real quick. Asians, 12.7%. Whites, 15.3%. Hispanics, 31.3%. Blacks, 56.1%.
That's a lot of blacks.
Whoa.
56%.
To be fair, I'm sure that all things were equal.
Yeah, that means black applicants in the bottom 40% have a better chance of getting into Harvard than whites and Asians in the top 10% of applicants.
What?
That's a lot of math, but I do know that it's racist. Do I have that right? Yes, this is incredibly racist. This is look. This goes back to when I was at UMass, right? The only diversity that they don't care about is intellectual diversity. Let me paint a picture for you before we move. By the way, Biden's using a CPAP. I'll talk about that. But let me paint a picture for you. Do you think that you will have a better formative experience? And I don't think college should be your formative experience. I think it should be life experience. I think it should be preparing you for an actual path for a job that exists. But if you're saying, okay, the experience creates this diverse environment and that causes people to grow. All right, you're on a campus where everyone thinks the same. You never hear about the Constitution or certainly its original intent. You don't hear people who advocate for the Second Amendment, the First Amendment. You don't hear from right-wing sources. You don't hear from conservative sources. There are many, there's somewhere around 30%, by the way. I'm going by rote here of universities, colleges, in their humanities department, they don't have a single conservative on staff. So that's the school you go to, but you have a lot of black people and not too many Asian people. Okay. In the other world, you have people who got in on academic merit, and you have, because of that, a natural sprinkling, a natural sort of formation of different worldviews, of different perspectives, where you might have a professor teach you something that challenges you. Maybe you have one who leans right. You have one who leans left. Maybe you have somebody who advocates for a flat tax. Maybe you have a professor who teaches you about a progressive tax. Maybe you have someone who's a Marxist. Right now, that's all you have. And maybe you have someone who says, look, read Karl Marx. And you have another professor who says, great, let's also read Adam Smith. Which kind of diversity do you think is more beneficial to the educational experience? That's what they won't discuss because they are racist. And I'm saying that definitively. The left now, their response to affirmative, this is a layup. Sure, you shouldn't be able to discriminate against Asians. We used to bitch about people throwing Asians right in New York on the third rail, and we said, stop Asian hate. Now they're no longer a useful tool. Did I see something else coming in from Supreme Court from Hootie?
No, there's not going to be any. Oh, there's a Robert Reich tweet. Please let me do this.
Oh, my gosh.
Yep.
Oh, no.
Robert Reich,
tweet
please.
from Robert Reich.
Okay.
The Supreme Court's decision to ignore the role that race plays in our nation and how it shapes our institutions and who is allowed to participate in them is a major
Wrong! Doesn't have a damn thing to do with if you can carry the load academically, Robert.
Nope.
You can have your society of everybody gets to go to Harvard if you want it, but then it's not Harvard. It's something else. It's dumbed down to the lowest common denominator. I'm sorry, not everybody's smart enough to get into these Ivy League schools and perform. That's called a meritocracy.
Well, I would even say not everyone is on the path to go to an Ivy League school, and they can be far smarter than people in the Ivy League. For example,
they'll do better in life.
Yeah, exactly. They could find. You know what's smarter than getting a gender studies degree at an Ivy League school? Learning a trade and starting a business. And there's nothing wrong. Again, the premise for all of this is, hey, you need to go to university. You need the world of higher education. That's the ticket to success, and it's a lie. So they promise it as the ticket to success.
Right.
And say, even if you're not qualified for said ticket, we're going to make sure that you go in and enslave you with debt.
Yeah.
What do you think you're doing? I mean, how close are we to slavery if through a system of policy, you say, okay, we're going to take a black individual, put him in a program for which we know he is not qualified and likely will never graduate if you look at the statistics, and even though we'll provide some grants, he will be burdened with debt for the rest of his life that he cannot pay off, and we do so in the name of race. We're getting pretty close, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Almost like Kamala Harris asking to keep the inmates in longer so that she could have free slave labor.
Well, it makes things cheaper.
Yeah. Well, there weren't any more mayors to slave. Well. All right.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.